Welcome back. You're watching India Tonight. I'm Shabani Gharat, and joining us from our Delhi studio is my colleague Sumita Karir. Now, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal sounded optimistic about the India-US trade deal and said that both sides are moving towards a free trade agreement and that both countries are committed to early conclusion of the India-US FTA. In the latest, Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agarwal met US Deputy Trade Representative Rick Schwitzer, and ongoing negotiations for mutually beneficial BTA was discussed. Here is what Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said.
यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका की टीम मंगलवार से भारत में है और उनके साथ बातचीत निरंतर प्रगति कर रही है। बायलैटरल ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट की तरफ हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। इसी प्रकार से
The air is pregnant with possibilities and India will not negotiate any deal under a deadline. Well, big commentary coming in from India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, even as a trade team is here. Tomorrow is going to be day 2 of negotiations, ladies and gentlemen. And to put that deal and these visits into perspective, I'm now joined by Mr. Ashok Sajjanar. He's a former ambassador. Thank you very much, sir, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. We're talking to you after quite some time, and what a day it's been. We have been sort of getting very diverse set of commentary, because if you see what Jameson Greer said, he said that New Delhi has made the best that we've ever received as a country. Does that suggest that the trade deal may be closed, or do we still have a few miles to walk before this package gets closure, given the fact that Minister Goyal said that India will not negotiate on deals under any strict deadlines? What is your opinion?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sumita, for having me on the show. Let me make 2 points. Number one, that as far as the United States is concerned and as far as the White House is concerned, it is very hazardous to make any guess, or make any prediction with any type of certainty. Because we have seen that, we have been very, very close to things happening, and not only on our trade deal, but several other issues. And as far as the word coming out of Washington is quite different. So, it is, anyone who in sanity would not really be trying to predict what is going to happen. Second thing is, we have been very close to a trade deal always, since end of June, beginning of July. I have been hearing, from your channel, from so many other channels, both within the country and outside, that we are very close to a trade deal. And it is just going to happen. It is, and at that time, it has been lying on the table of Mr. Trump. So, as far as the negotiators are concerned, it is my understanding that they are quite happy as far as the trade deal is concerned, what we had negotiated at the end of June, beginning of July, and even subsequently, what you said, what the USTR Jamison Greer has said, that is the best deal that we have got. We've been working towards it and trying to see what possibilities there are in terms of increasing our energy imports from the United States, etc., so that, trade deficit can be reduced. But I will really say that a trade deal is there when I see it actually having been signed and approved by Mr. Trump. Because for the last few months, several months, in fact, I think it is basically Mr. Trump wants something, like many other countries, Vietnam, Indonesia, all the others, they have succumbed to what the United States has demanded. While as far as India is concerned, we have always asked for a fair, balanced, win-win trade deal, mutually beneficial, mutually advantageous, and not a one-sided trade deal that we open up our markets and we don't get suitable access to the American market.
Absolutely, sir. And as you mentioned, it shouldn't be a one-sided trade deal. It should be mutually beneficial. Having said that, what would you actually consider a win for India in any bilateral deal with a country like US?
Basically what I would like to see is that Ideally, many of the items on which we have zero tariffs for our products getting into the United States, that would be maintained. But, under the current circumstances, under the transactional White House that we have, which sort of, is imposing tariffs on all countries, and the minimum is on the United Kingdom at 10%, and others are 15, 19%. So I would, being realistic, one is I can, give my wish list. We have a zero tariff. After all, the United States is a developed economy and India is a developing economy. So we should have that access into that market. This is how we negotiated when we were in the WTO. But this is not the scheme of things as it prevails today. So, under the circumstances today, Shivani, what I'd like to see is maybe anything between 10 to 15% tariffs and some access in areas where we can provide access to the United States. But, as far as our red lines are concerned, on
Right.
GMOs, on some of the agricultural products, but on several other agricultural products, we can provide access. But on several of these dairy
Right.
products, GMOs, and agricultural products, MSMEs, where we have drawn the red
Right,
lines,
Ambassador.
that we don't allow access in those sectors. Sumita.
Absolutely, Ambassador, and that is something that we've not compromised with any other country that we have done FTAs or are in the process of negotiating FTAs, or the countries that have reached out to us as far as trade deals are concerned. But let me also welcome on the show Pramit Pal Chaudhary. He's the head South Asia practice at the Eurasia Group. Thank you very much, Pramit, for taking the time out. Let's get in your thoughts on the US-India trade deal, given the fact that there are two teams that are currently in India. There is the head of the Political Affairs Committee of the United States, and of course the other one is a team that's led by Deputy USTR Mr. Schweitzer. In fact, Mr. Schweitzer has also met top-ranking government officials as well. But coming back to the point that Ambassador Sajjanar made about agri-dairy and GM crops, which have been challenging areas, and India is not really too ready to budge on those red lines. But is that all that's taking time? And what are the kind of trade-offs that India could settle for if not giving away agriculture, dairy, and some of these sectors? We have already signed of pacts with the United States. So whether it is the 10-year defense framework or it is about striking energy and LPG deals and imports, what is it that could be offered from the Indian side to make up for the lack of access in the agricultural sector? Pramit, may I request you to please unmute and then begin the answer again?
Sorry. So as far as I understand, we have actually made concessions in the agricultural area. That was the basis. Otherwise, there would frankly be no US FTA whatsoever, because that is President Trump's almost single point agenda. These are the products grown by the farmers who support him. And he's made that very clear that without that, he has no interest in any deal with any country. But what we have basically said, my understanding, is that the grain, actual soya, a corn grain, which is genetically modified, we cannot accept for the time being. But products from those grains, we already import. We are the world's largest importer of soybean oil. We are a major importer of livestock feed that is made from corn and soya. We can import ethanol, corn-based ethanol. Even though, to be fair, right now I don't think we need it. So these are products from these grains that we are prepared to consider. And on dairy, there are certain products like, let's say, aged cheese or high-end products that which are niche markets in India. We are prepared to consider or have conceded. So those are there, and I think that's already part of the so-called first tranche agreement that is done. The problem we have continued to face with negotiations with the United States is that when we come to an agreement with the negotiators on the ground, President Trump then comes in and says, oh, that's fine, but I want to add one or two personal things. So what's happened right now is the fifth version of the agreement has gone upstairs to the president, and he is now sitting on it. That's why the present USTR team has basically come in to tweak a few points here and there. But they're basically saying that, look, we're actually done for the most part. I mean, at least for goods and farm products, not for financial and digital services, which is tranche two. But the president has to make a call. Now, we can only speculate about what Trump wants. We do know that one of those demands is, of course, a massive reduction in Indian imports of Russian oil. That's taking place even now. We've got the green signal, if you wish, from Vladimir Putin that he understands why we have to do this. And the price difference now between Russian oil and global oil is really quite minuscule. So that isn't too hard to accomplish, but it'll take a few weeks before the tankers, which are carrying already ordered shipments, start to arrive. We do know by the numbers that the loading of new shipments to India has dropped off almost to zero. That's one element of it. It seems he's also asking for some sort of a meeting with Modi. If that's the case, that shouldn't be also too hard to answer, though Prime Minister Modi seems increasingly averse to actually meeting him. But he also has some defense demands on us, some of which we have already publicly said we will accept. For example, the purchase of the Excalibur shell, which is a perfect fit for our M999 artillery, as well as the Javelin anti-tank missile, all of which we actually were thinking of buying anyway. But there seems to be more demands which India has rejected. So we're now looking at how do we get past President Trump's last set of personal demands, if you wish. In that case, when the U.S. ambassador, new U.S. ambassador arrives sometime in early January, I think his primary task will be to bridge these last bits and pieces.
Yes,
that are
yes,
still
yes.
missing.
Yes, absolutely. And as Ambassador rightly pointed out, and you also mentioned that there are certain personal demands, and he said that he will only believe when there is a final signature by Mr. Trump on the Indo-US trade deal. But having said that, what role do you think, think tanks and track two diplomacy, such as what you've been a part of, played in influencing some of these real policy and trade decisions? And if you can give us an inside understanding of it.
This is addressed to the ambassador or to me, because we both do track two diplomacy. So yeah,
Yes.
we've been working I've been with part of on track 2 and track 1.5 diplomacy the United States now for almost 20 years. It's a little more difficult in the Trump administration, not because it's less because of the highly personalized nature of the administration. We can meet members of the administration and they have no problems in doing so. And what is striking, I think, for us is that at the ministerial level, whether it's the foreign ministers, defense ministers, intelligence chiefs, J.D. Vance, the vice president, you could not see a more enthusiastic group of people regarding the relationship with India. But all of them say one thing, which is that the president has the final word, as you would expect, but the president has a serious issue regarding trade and tariffs. This is almost an obsession with Trump, and in many ways the basis of his political career. So you have to figure out how to come to a deal with him. That is going to be your fundamental goal. Otherwise, there is no serious animosity regarding India. Trump has not said anything. In fact, recently, he's actually been quite praised. He's praised Prime Minister Modi, called him a killer, good-looking guy, and so on and so forth. He's also praised India, even on H-1B visas, after Lutnick took a particularly hard line on that. You saw Trump turning around and saying, no, we need people on the H-1B visas. So we're seeing, generally speaking, we don't see the kind of animosity or abuse that Trump gives to a lot of other countries. In fact, when I've talked to other governments, they say, well, you guys are in much better shape than we are. I mean, Canada gets more abuse than we ever on a daily basis than India does. So we're in an okay position. The new national security strategy, based on the leads we're now getting, also talks about the idea of replacing the G7 with what they call a C5, a core 5. And India is one of those 5 new countries that America sees as a part of its future.
Absolutely, Pramit. But to your point about the fact that, Donald Trump has been heaping praises on the Prime Minister, well, he's also threatened very recently, just a couple of hours back, on imposing tariffs on rice that is exported from India into the United States. So we can't really seem to decide which way Donald Trump is going to finally going to be, leaning towards, as it were. But definitely, thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on 18.